Wait, imagine walking onto the biggest stage in the world, lights blinding your eyes, thousands of people staring, judges waiting to laugh at you, and then a small voice begins to sing a song that makes an entire nation proud. Before this story begins, do one quick thing: tap like and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that even the smallest voices can shake the world. The auditorium of America's Got Talent was buzzing with excitement that night. The crowd expected another entertaining performance, maybe a comedian or a magician. But instead, the stage doors slowly opened, and a small boy walked out. He looked no older than 12. His name was Miguel Santos, a Filipino kid from a small fishing village in the Philippines. His clothes were simple, just a plain white shirt, black pants, and worn-out shoes that had clearly seen many difficult days. The judges looked at him curiously. Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, studying the boy. There was something about Miguel, something quiet but powerful. "Hello," Simon said. "What's your name?" Miguel held the microphone with both hands. His voice trembled slightly. "My name is Miguel Santos. I am from the Philippines." The crowd clapped politely. But Simon raised an eyebrow. "So Miguel, why did you come all the way here to America's Got Talent?" Miguel took a deep breath. His eyes scanned the crowd, and for a moment, he looked nervous. But then he said something that made the entire room quiet. "I came here to make my country proud." The audience murmured softly. Simon smiled a little. "All right. What will you be performing for us today?" Miguel swallowed nervously. "I will sing Lupang Hinirang." The judges exchanged confused looks. Some people in the audience didn't recognize the title. But a few Filipino audience members instantly gasped. They knew exactly what it was. Lupang Hinirang was the national anthem of the Philippines. Simon leaned back in his chair. "That's a big song," he said carefully. Miguel nodded. "Yes, sir." What the judges didn't know was the story behind this boy. Miguel grew up in a tiny coastal village where his father worked as a fisherman. Every morning before sunrise, his father would leave in a small wooden boat, hoping to catch enough fish to feed the family. Some days they had food. Some days they didn't. Miguel's mother worked long hours selling fruits in the local market. Money was always tight. Sometimes Miguel had to walk miles to school because the family couldn't afford transportation. But there was one thing Miguel always loved: singing. Every evening, when the sun set over the ocean, Miguel would sit near the shore and sing. The waves became his audience. The wind carried his voice across the village. His grandmother was the first person who noticed his gift. One evening she told him something he would never forget. "Miguel," she said softly, "your voice carries the heart of the Philippines." From that day on, Miguel dreamed of one thing: to sing for his country. When he heard about America's Got Talent, it seemed impossible. The auditions were thousands of miles away. His family had no money. But the villagers believed in him. They held small fundraisers. Fishermen donated part of their daily catch. Shopkeepers gave what little they could. Slowly, enough money was collected for Miguel to travel. Now he stood on the AGT stage, holding the microphone tightly. The music began. The first notes of Lupang Hinirang echoed softly through the theater. Miguel closed his eyes and started to sing. His voice was pure, clear, powerful. Every note carried emotion far beyond his young age. The room that had been noisy moments earlier suddenly fell completely silent. Even people who didn't understand the language could feel the meaning in his voice. It was pride. It was love. It was hope. As Miguel reached the chorus, his voice soared higher, filling every corner of the theater. The camera cut to the judges. Heidi Klum's eyes widened. Sofia Vergara placed her hand over her heart. And Simon Cowell, who was known for being one of the toughest judges in the world, looked completely stunned. But something even more surprising happened. Simon's eyes began to fill with tears. The audience noticed it too. A boy from a small village on the other side of the world was moving one of the most critical judges on television. When Miguel sang the final line, his voice trembled with emotion. The last note echoed across the stage. For a moment, total silence. And then the entire auditorium exploded. The audience jumped to their feet in a standing ovation. People were cheering, clapping, shouting. Some Filipino audience members were crying openly, waving small Philippine flags. Miguel stood frozen on stage, overwhelmed by the reaction. Simon wiped his eyes and leaned toward the microphone. Miguel, he said quietly. The room slowly calmed down. That was one of the most emotional performances we've ever had on this stage. The audience applauded again. Simon continued. I didn't understand every word, but I understood the feeling. And sometimes, that's more powerful than language. Miguel's eyes filled with tears. Simon paused for a moment before speaking again. You didn't just sing tonight. You represented your country, with pride. The crowd roared. Sofia Vergara leaned forward next. You made everyone feel something tonight. That is the power of music. Heidi smiled warmly. You are very special, Miguel. But then Simon did something unexpected. He slowly reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. The entire theater exploded with golden confetti raining down from the ceiling. Miguel gasped. He covered his face with his hands as the audience screamed with excitement. Simon walked onto the stage and placed a hand on Miguel's shoulder. You deserve this, he said. Thousands of miles away, in a small fishing village in the Philippines, Miguel's family was watching the broadcast on a tiny television. When they saw the golden buzzer, his mother began crying. His father raised his hands in the air with pride. The villagers cheered loudly. Their boy had done it. Not just for himself, but for the Philippines. And that night, the world learned something important. Greatness doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from fame. Sometimes, it comes from a small boy with a big dream, and a voice strong enough to carry the pride of an entire nation. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the most powerful stories come from the most unexpected voices. Wait, before we begin, imagine this for a moment. A small boy walks onto the America's Got Talent stage. The judges don't know him. The audience doesn't expect anything special. But a few minutes later, the entire room is standing, people are crying, and even Simon Cowell is wiping tears from his eyes. If you love powerful stories like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another inspiring moment. Now let's begin the story. The bright lights of the AGT stage felt overwhelming for 11-year-old Miguel Santos. The stage was huge, the audience massive, and the judges sat silently watching him. His small hands held the microphone tightly as his heart pounded in his chest. Miguel came from a quiet fishing village in the Philippines where life was simple but often difficult. His father woke up before sunrise every day to sail out into the sea hoping to catch enough fish to support the family. Some days were good, but many days were hard. Storms often destroyed nets, and sometimes the ocean returned empty. Miguel's mother worked in a small roadside stall selling fruits and snacks to travelers. The money they earned barely covered food and school supplies. Yet despite the struggles, their home was always filled with something special: music. Every morning before school, Miguel would stand outside their small wooden house and sing. His voice would echo across the beach as fishermen prepared their boats and children walked to school. People began to notice that this quiet boy had a truly extraordinary voice. But Miguel never imagined that his singing could take him anywhere beyond his village. Everything changed one afternoon at school during a small cultural program. Miguel stood nervously in front of his classmates and sang Lupang Hinirang. As he sang, the room became silent. Even the teachers stopped what they were doing to listen. When he finished, everyone applauded loudly. One teacher approached him and said something that would stay in Miguel's heart forever. You don't just sing, she told him gently. You sing with the soul of the Philippines. From that moment, Miguel dreamed bigger than ever before. Months later, he saw something on television that seemed almost impossible. It was America's Got Talent. Performers from all over the world stood on a massive stage showing their talents to famous judges. Miguel watched in amazement. "What if I could sing there one day?" he whispered. At first it felt like a silly dream. Traveling from a small Philippine village to America seemed impossible for a poor fisherman's son. But Miguel's family believed in him. His father sold extra fish in the market. His mother saved small coins every day. Neighbors contributed what they could. Slowly, the village came together to help the young boy chase his dream. After months of effort, Miguel finally boarded a plane for the first time in his life. Now he stood on the AGT stage in front of the judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, and Sofia Vergara. Simon leaned forward with curiosity. "So, young man, what's your name?" "My name is Miguel Santos," he replied softly. "And where are you from?" "I'm from the Philippines." The audience clapped politely. Simon smiled slightly. "And why did you come to AGT?" Miguel paused. His voice trembled, but his eyes were determined. "I came here to make my country proud." Wait, before the story begins, imagine a small boy stepping onto the stage of America's Got Talent. The lights are bright, the judges are watching, and thousands of people are waiting to see what he can do. But no one expects what will happen next, a performance so emotional that even Simon Cowell struggles to hold back his tears. If you enjoy inspiring stories like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another powerful moment. Now let's begin. The massive auditorium buzzed with excitement as the next contestant was announced. The stage doors slowly opened, and a small boy walked out. He looked nervous but determined. His name was Miguel Santos, an 11-year-old boy from the Philippines. Miguel wore a simple white shirt, black pants, and slightly worn shoes. Nothing about his appearance suggested he was about to deliver one of the most unforgettable performances in the show's history. Simon leaned forward curiously. "Hello. What's your name?" Miguel held the microphone carefully with both hands. "My name is Miguel Santos, and I'm from the Philippines." The audience applauded politely. Simon nodded. "And what are you going to perform today?" Miguel took a deep breath before answering. "I will sing Lupang Hinirang." The judges exchanged surprised looks. Singing a national anthem on such a massive stage was a bold choice. But Miguel's story had already begun long before he stepped onto that stage. He grew up in a small fishing village near the sea in the Philippines. His father was a fisherman who woke up before sunrise every day, sailing into the open ocean hoping to catch enough fish to support the family. Some days the catch was good. But many days it wasn't. Miguel's mother worked at a small roadside stand selling fruits and snacks. Their family struggled financially, but they never lost hope. Despite the challenges, there was always one thing that filled their small home with joy: Miguel's singing. From a very young age, Miguel loved to sing. Every evening he would sit near the shore, watching the sunset over the ocean while softly singing songs he had learned at school. The waves became his audience. The wind carried his voice across the village. One day, his grandmother sat beside him as he sang the Philippine national anthem. When he finished, she smiled warmly. "Miguel," she said gently, "when you sing that song, it feels like the whole country is speaking through your voice." Those words stayed in Miguel's heart forever. Months later, he watched an episode of America's Got Talent on television. Performers from all over the world were showcasing their talents on the biggest stage imaginable. Miguel stared at the screen in awe. "What if I could sing there someday?" he whispered. At first, the dream felt impossible. Traveling from a poor fishing village to America seemed like something only rich or famous people could do. But Miguel's community believed in him. The villagers organized small fundraisers. Fishermen donated part of their daily catch. Shopkeepers gave whatever they could. Slowly, they raised enough money to help Miguel travel for the audition. And now he stood on the AGT stage, ready to represent his country. The music began. The first notes echoed softly through the auditorium. Miguel closed his eyes and started to sing. His voice was pure, powerful, and filled with emotion far beyond his age. Each word carried pride and love for his homeland. Even those who didn't understand the language could feel the emotion flowing through every note. The audience grew completely silent. The camera showed the judges watching closely. Heidi Klum looked stunned. Sofia Vergara placed her hand over her heart. And Simon Cowell, known for his tough criticism, looked deeply moved. As Miguel reached the powerful chorus, his voice rose beautifully across the theater. It felt like the entire room was holding its breath. When he sang the final note, his voice trembled with emotion. Then, silence. For a moment, no one moved. And suddenly the entire audience exploded with applause. People jumped to their feet, cheering loudly. Some audience members were crying, deeply touched by the performance. Miguel stood on stage in disbelief. Simon slowly leaned toward his microphone. "Miguel," he said softly. "That was one of the most emotional performances we've ever heard on this stage." The audience cheered again. Simon continued. "I didn't understand every word, but I understood the feeling. And sometimes, that's what music is truly about." Miguel's eyes filled with tears. Sophia smiled warmly. "You made everyone feel proud of your country tonight." Heidi added, "Your voice is beautiful, but your heart is even bigger." Then Simon paused for a moment. Slowly, he reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded from above as the entire theater erupted with excitement. Miguel gasped in shock as tears streamed down his face. Simon walked onto the stage and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You came here to make your country proud," Simon said gently. "And tonight, you did exactly that." Thousands of miles away in the Philippines, Miguel's village was watching the broadcast together on a small television. When the golden buzzer appeared on the screen, the entire village erupted in celebration. His mother cried tears of joy. His father hugged everyone around him. Their small village had just been seen by the whole world. That night proved something powerful. Greatness doesn't come from wealth or fame. Sometimes, it comes from courage, belief, and a voice strong enough to carry the pride of an entire nation. And Miguel Santos showed the world that even a small boy from a humble village can step onto the biggest stage and make history. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because the next inspiring story might change your life too. Wait, don't skip this story. Because what happened on that stage shocked the judges, moved the audience to tears, and made millions of Filipinos around the world feel proud. A small boy walked onto the stage of America's Got Talent, and by the end of his performance, even Simon Cowell couldn't hold back his emotions. Before the story begins, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that even the smallest voices can make the biggest impact. The giant auditorium lights glowed brightly as the next contestant was announced. The audience expected another typical performance. But when the stage doors opened, a small boy slowly walked out. He looked around 11 or 12 years old. He was thin, wearing a simple white shirt, black trousers, and shoes that looked slightly worn. His name was Miguel Santos, and he had traveled thousands of miles from the Philippines to stand on that stage. The judges watched him carefully. Simon Cowell leaned forward with curiosity. "Hello. What's your name?" Simon asked. Miguel held the microphone with both hands. "My name is Miguel Santos, and I'm from the Philippines." The crowd clapped warmly. Simon smiled slightly. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Miguel paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I will sing Lupang Hinirang, the national anthem of my country." The judges exchanged surprised looks. Performing a national anthem on such a big stage was a bold decision. But Miguel had a reason. Back in the Philippines, Miguel lived in a small fishing village where life was simple but difficult. His father worked long days as a fisherman, sailing out into the ocean before sunrise in a small wooden boat. Some days he returned with a good catch. Other days he came back with almost nothing. Miguel's mother sold fruit and snacks in a tiny roadside stall. The money she earned helped pay for school supplies and food. Despite their struggles, Miguel's family always supported his biggest passion, singing. Every evening after school, Miguel would sit near the ocean and sing while watching the sun slowly disappear behind the waves. His voice carried across the beach, and neighbors often stopped to listen. One evening, Miguel's grandmother sat beside him while he sang the national anthem. When he finished, she looked at him with pride. "Miguel," she said softly, "when you sing that song, it sounds like the heart of the Philippines." Those words stayed with him forever. Years later, Miguel watched America's Got Talent on television for the first time. He saw performers from all over the world showing their talents in front of famous judges. At that moment, a dream formed in his heart. "What if I could sing there one day?" he whispered. At first it seemed impossible. Traveling to America required money his family didn't have. But the people in Miguel's village believed in him. The fishermen collected donations. The local shopkeepers gave small amounts of money. Even schoolchildren helped raise funds. Slowly, the village came together to help Miguel chase his dream. And now the dream had brought him to the AGT stage. The music began. The first soft notes of Lupang Hinirang filled the auditorium. Miguel closed his eyes and began to sing. His voice was clear and powerful, filled with emotion that went far beyond his young age. Each note carried pride, love, and hope. The entire theater fell silent. The camera showed the judges. Heidi Klum looked amazed. Sofia Vergara placed her hand gently over her chest. And Simon Cowell, the toughest judge of them all, stared at Miguel with deep emotion in his eyes. As the song reached its powerful chorus, Miguel's voice rose beautifully, filling every corner of the theater. The audience was completely captivated. By the time Miguel reached the final lines, many people were already wiping tears from their eyes. He sang the final note with all the strength in his heart. Then everything went quiet. For a moment, the entire auditorium was silent. And suddenly the room